Sup peeps, it's Kudo here. For the past few weeks, I've been working on a little project for either a webcomic or an animated series. I haven't really decided yet. For a bit of context, if you know me personally, you know I've been becoming more and more fond of the rubber-hosed slapstick cartoon aesthetic. Why? Well, watch the recent episodes of One Piece and you tell me. But anyway, I came up with an idea for a rubber-hosed slapstick cartoon for adults. And only adults. I have dubbed this project Fantasy Arrangements. In this video, I'll be drawing 3 out of the 6 main characters for this series. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Hope you enjoyed the video. So as I'm drawing the main character, a quick synopsis. The series starts off with the main character, Abigail Hartman, or Abby for short. She has always been of a fantasy nerd ever since her middle school days, but because of her obsession with the fantasy world and her being just kind of a weirdo, she hasn't made a lot of friends. One night, she recently got fired from her minimum wage job that doesn't pay a lot anyway. She walks home wondering how she is going to handle her apartment rent when suddenly she spots a shooting star in the sky. Knowing that her wish wouldn't come true anyway, she jokingly wished that she lived in her dream fantasy world. To her surprise, however, her wish was granted, as she was warped out of existence and into an entirely different world. A fantasy world. There were dragons and other mythological creatures roaming amok. Being the fantasy nerd that she is, she thought all this was great. Then she tripped and bumped into 2 other human beings who also ended up in the fantasy world, but in different ways. They meet up with 3 fantasy creatures who Abby and the others eventually befriend, and shenanigans ensue. The main character, Abby, is a 22-year-old woman who has an insatiable love for the fantasy world and fantasy creatures and monsters. In other words, she's a bit of a nerd. She's bisexual and in some circumstances, a bit of a pervert. She's goofy, outgoing, and somewhat bubbly. She has been feeling a bit gloomier than she would like back in her own world, with all the political stuff and discrimination and what she personally has been going through. She hasn't been the happiest girl in quite some time. But now that she's in the fantasy world, she's been feeling a lot happier. For the first time in a good while, she feels like a giant weight has been lifted off her shoulders, and she intends to keep it that way by not finding a way to return home. As of right now, the new fantasy world is her home. Also, does she look familiar to you guys? If you guys watch my redesigning my old OCs video, you've probably seen me redesign this lady, who I decided to repurpose into a character for one of my projects. Here's Abby's final design. I know it's simple, but I feel like her simple design helps her contrast with the overall setting. And I guess you could say this is a redesign of a redesign. Let me know what you think of her in the comments. Next up on our list is Naz Robinson, Abby's closest friend. She's shorter than Abby despite being 21, and is quite a food junkie and a bit of a neat. Prior to her arrival in the fantasy world, she has a knack for art and wants to make a living by having peeps commission her to drawing what peeps want, although she hasn't really done any, which bummed her out a little bit. Then her roommate went and scolded her for being a lazy bum, not helping with rent, and not finding an actual job. Naz, saddened by this, left the apartment for a while and went to the nearest river to go kayaking with the kayak given to her by her now-deceased father to clear her mind. As she was kayaking, she was lost in her thought when suddenly she found herself accidentally drifting into the open ocean. She tried to turn back when a gigantic whirlpool appeared out of nowhere and flushed her right in. As she came to, she found herself in a land she does not recognize. Unfortunately, her kayak is now in splinters, which made her sad. Suddenly, she was greeted by a family of Holstars who saw that she's not from here and decided to find her a new home. They let her stay in a cabin in their backyard that they don't use, and Naz was utterly grateful. The family even liked her drawings she made. She was the first to end up in the fantasy world as far as we know, and grew quite accustomed to her new home. Here's the final design for Naz. Let me know what you think of her in the comments below. Last character we'll be talking about today is Scott Colton. Scott has always been a bit of a brainiac. Prior to his arrival in the fantasy world, he really wasn't the biggest fan of the fantasy genre in media. He was more into science, technology, and astrology. During his high school days, he often gets picked on, mostly by girls, not because he's a nerd or because he's into what he's into. It's because of the absolute dump truck of an ass he's got, and the girls in his school tease him for it. This was due to his genes mostly coming from his mom. Take that what you will. Fast forward to the present, he is now experimenting with matter. During one of his experiments, something went wrong. While he was experimenting with matter, some kind of portal opened right in front of him. He was taken aback, but before he could do anything, he was suddenly sucked in. But not before having his fat ass get stuck for a brief moment for comedic effect. When he came to, he was taken aback by the world he's now in. Surely this can't be real, he thought, but it was hard to deny it. The fantasy world is real. Thankfully, the fantasy world turned out to be more modernized as he expected, so at least he won't have to worry about being completely devoid of technology. At first, he was terrified of the mythological creatures that reside here, but as he later came across Naz, she introduced him to some of the residents she met during her time here. Now, Scott has gotten used to the residents here. When he and Naz came across Abby a year later, he would notice her staring intensely at his ass. Now, Scott isn't clueless. He knows a pervert when he sees one and would call her out for it, with Abby shamelessly admitting so. He is the youngest out of the human characters, being 20 years old, but is also undoubtedly the smartest. Okay, so quick fun fact, this design was actually an adoptable I bought from an artist I like called the /51. He's active on Twitter, please go check him out, he makes some really delicious art. Here's Scott's final design. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And there you have it. 3 out of the 6 main cast members of my project. Which one is your favorite? Do you like my storytelling? Which one would you fuck? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video and want more from me, why not leave a like and subscribe to my channel? I very much would like to do this as my job, so please subscribe, share this video with your friends from all around the world, and as always, I will see you when I see you. Later!